Hi everyone, I wanted to jump on quickly and show you the blender pens that Stampin' Up do. So this is what they look like. They're a clear tip on them, or a white tip I should say, with clear fluid. So they're double-ended, both ends have, it shows like a brush end, however it's quite firm. Once you get started, they do loosen up after a little while. Really important because you're using watercolour, so you're colouring with inks or watercolours, you do need to use this Stays On, it's a solvent-based ink. Don't use the Memento Black, which we use for our blender pens. So if you did use the other one, it will all bleed everywhere. So I've got a little bit of, this is actually hot pressed watercolour paper. However, I would suggest, I'm just going to grab it. This is the stuff that they had at On Stage in Melbourne, Fluid 100. This is what they sell. It is a cotton paper, which is what the traditional artist's hot pressed paper is. This is quite thin. It's quite firm, but it's still thin. These sheets here are a lot thicker. They don't really have too much of a texture about them, which is good because you want it fairly smooth. There is 10 sheets in each pack, so you do, oh, how big's that? Does it tell me? Here, it's a 5 by 7, so not quite 13 and not quite 18 centimeters. So reasonably big. You probably only need a quarter of that for an image that you're colouring anyway on a card. So these ones are available from Stampin' Up, really good quality, so I would suggest that. So if you're looking at it, you will need the black Stays On solvent ink, a packet of these, which I think at the moment in the catalogue is, did I say $21 for 3 of them, and they will last quite a long while, and a packet of your watercolour paper. So let me show you how it works. So you just use your normal ink pads. I'm going to use, let me see some bright colours. Got Daffodil Delight, Pumpkin Pie, no, let me see. Let's go with Coastal Cabana. So this kind of combo, a bit retro. All right, so I'm going to stamp an image. And I've got the Night of Flight. I don't know if anyone's got this yet. It is a host set. So if you are putting in a big order of over $250 in the next several weeks before the new catalogue comes out, you actually can buy this stamp set really cheap. It's in the back of the catalogue. If you're not sure, let me know. The code for it is 161281. From memory, it was $20-something. It's really lovely. It has these stamps that you can actually fill in the colour parts of the moths. Yes, they are moths, but they colour up really beautifully. And I have got several cards that I've done more recently with this one. I love butterflies and moths and things to colour. So here we go. I'm going to move my ink pads to the top for a second. And then I'm just going to grab one of these. Let me grab this pretty one to start with. And a stamp block. So excuse my arm being in the way. So to ink it up, this Stays On ink pads do have like a protective cover, and you do want that because if it gets on you or gets anywhere, it does make a bit of a mess. Because it's solvent, you will need to have like acetone or something like that to remove it if you get it on something. Don't get it on your clothes. Wear your pajamas and then you won't have a worry about getting them on your clothes. So yeah, and it does dry out really quickly, so make sure you pop the lid back on it. I always turn mine upside down because that keeps the ink at the top on the very surface as much as possible. Don't leave this too long and talk too much like I do, and we're just going to stamp that one down. Nice and firm. And peel it off, and you'll feel that it sort of wants to stick a little bit. Now that's not very, very dark. You can buy the refill ink for these guys. Oh no. Let me just grab my refill ink. which looks like this. You can get that in the Stampin' Up shop too. To refill, you literally put a few dobs on. Can you see that? No. Just dotting it on. You can see it just absorbs in. Don't add too much, but I don't know, 20 or 30 probably is enough. And it will absorb in. Really, you should probably wait, I don't know, a couple of minutes before you use it. Don't do what I do and just use it straight away. But you will notice now the difference when I ink this up and stamp it. It will stamp much more easily. Ugh, didn't quite press it. Anyway, you get the idea. And that's the same with all your ink pads. They all come with little tiny ink refills, and you probably should grab them, especially if there's colours that are retiring. These are, I don't know, I think $10 or $11, something like that. There's enough in there to refill your ink pad for quite some time. Still going? Quite some time. Like several times, in fact. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to take that off for a minute. I'm going to use my block, and I'm going to add colour to my block. So I'm going to do my yellow. My orange. And my blue. Just don't overlap them. And I just put them on a block. Some people do, and I can show you with my old stamp pads because I don't do it anymore. But some people press them, like you can press them down here, and it actually gives you, so here's my old ones. These do open differently. But you can see you press it. Let me give it a go. Press it, and the whole thing sort of, you can feel it squeeze together, and you end up with ink on there, and you can use it direct from there. These are the old ink pads, how they all got together, went together in those days. All right, so blender pen, and the only other thing you'll need is a bit of scrap paper. Doesn't matter what, as long as it's, you know, just a little tiny bit of paper. I'll put that over here. I'm just going to move this up so you can see. Here we go. So I will start with my blue, and you just kind of swirl it around like that. You can see a little bit on there, and you just start, and because it is watercolor, and because watercolor paper actually has like a surface that the ink sits on top of rather than sort of absorbing in straight away. And you can go over it once or twice. It does get wet, so you do need to let it dry. But you can see it is more buildable. If you just gently go in just a little bit, you can see here. Can you see that? So I've tried to make it a little bit darker in some spots. Now this is what this is for. You just use it until all of the ink has come off. So it will colour the end of your tip, so you'll end up with this greyish kind of tip. That's okay. Let's do yellow. It's good for little surfaces. If you want to use bigger surfaces, the blender pen's not probably wet enough for that, but it's nice just the same. And you can see it gets lighter and lighter. I was always taught to go in circles. Don't know, it's everyone's each to their own. But I do go back and collect extra ink if I want it darker. And if I want it lighter, I just keep going. I spread it out basically, because there's plenty still on that tip until it's all clear. It's pretty much clear now. And then a little bit of orange. Yeah, I will go here even though that hasn't quite picked up yet. And it's quite a firm tip, so you're not going to, I don't know, like it's fairly easy to control. You can see how far this will go if I've inked it up reasonably well, which I did at the beginning at the top here. And then I go back and add a little bit more. And then as I get to the bottom, it really just blends really well like that. I don't know, can you see that? Hopefully this sort of kind of answers any questions that you had about the blender pens. Aqua pens are great, but I just feel like you don't have the control of them. For starters, their tips are not as pointed often as these ones. I've gone quiet because I'm concentrating, sorry. So if you've got any questions about these or you want to have a play, happy for you to come to my place and have a little bit of a go. Like I said, that started to soften up already, that tip, but it won't fray. It'll fray eventually, not quite like the blender pens. If you've got blender pens, you've got to be really careful, especially with the brush end. They do tend to splay out pretty quickly. And then you can just see, you can go back to other colours. And what I do is I pick up the ink and I don't quite colour everything. I kind of go back at the end and fill in like I put. And if you move fast like that, you kind of get your spread of ink quicker, because it does absorb into the paper, but not as quickly if you move fast. So there you can kind of see I've got light and shade. It does take practice, believe me, but it's no different to colouring in with a normal pen. You just got to remember putting more ink down and then moving it around will give you that light and shade. Okay, like I said, when I first started, this is pretty much all they had. They didn't have the stamping blends. They did have, you could obviously use watercolour brushes, but they didn't have the water blend pens either. They only had these, and this is what I learned to colour with. And it made it really simple. Now, going back very quickly to clean these, they do actually have a proper cleaner. I have, and I've probably shown you this before, but I have a little Stampin' scrub that I spray, and I have got the Stampin' Mist, which is great. You can actually use what's called Stays On Cleaner, which is a proper solvent ink pad cleaner, solvent ink cleaner, sorry. But it does eat away at your stamps over time, particularly if you don't clean them very well to begin with. And that's normally on a block, but I'm being a bit lazy. You can see it hasn't quite come off. It's not going to affect anything, but I probably should have cleaned that as soon as I had used it. That's where this little scrubbing thing, which actually comes in a little case. I've had mine for that long, it doesn't go in the case anymore, it just sits flat. But it's got two sides to it, and there. You can see most of that black's come off. It's not going to come off into other stamps or anything like that. It's just that I like to have them nice and clean. So there you go. All right, see ya.